This is Daybreak on the Wise News, and it's time for the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. We take a look at the headlines in this day this morning. Appeal Court discharges Kanu of terrorism charges, and thousands of jobs at risk as Kogi orders Dangote cement to shut down within 48 hours. Nigeria has not approached us for debt restructuring, says World Bank president. These are the headlines in this day newspaper.
This is the Punch. It's leading with Nnamdi Kanu. Jubilation in Southeast. Federal government may appeal judgment. The court says the IPOB leader's abduction was unlawful, and it slammed the executive for recklessness. PDP woos aggrieved party members. BOT delays report. Strike, parents, students hope for as ASU leaders meet. Well, the latest on that is the strike has now been suspended. They've come out of that meeting. And Sanwo-Olu, that's the governor in Lagos State, gets federal government approval for $2.5 billion Badagry Seaport.
And we take a look at the headlines in the Nation newspaper. Amotekun call. Others can't tackle banditry, says El Rufai. And South-South commissions Okowa Diri to pacify Wike. And ASU an all-night meeting of a strike, and like Ken rightly said, the latest report on that says the strike has been called off, and we'll bring you details as that unfolds. Now, Appeal Court ends Nnamdi Kanu's trial. Others IPOB leaders release.
This is the Sun newspaper. Appeal Court discharges, acquits Nnamdi Kanu, says extradition, detention unlawful. Those flaying some same faith candidacy backing North's retention of power hypocrites. That's according to River State Governor Nyesom Wike, is insisting that the chairman of the party PDP, Yocha, you must go. Obedient movement like NSAS driven by desire for better Nigeria. That's according to Cardinal Okoji.
And we'll take a look at the Guardian newspaper. IPOB Masob jubilate as court quashes charges against Kanu. Fresh concerns on state of basic education as out-of-school figure reaches 20 million. And Lagos probes nurses for filming ex-BB9 starts last moments. 126 stranded Nigerians return from Libya. The headlines in the Guardian newspaper.
The international papers now. This is the Financial Times. It's leading with this. Trusts ready to rip up tax cut package in desperate bid to save premiership.
And the Daily Telegraph. Kwatang insists, I am not going anywhere. And UK rebukes Macron for ruling out Russian nuclear strike.
Well, the Independent says Truss is getting ready to make another U-turn on tax.
And the I-paper, PM plans tax court U-turn while Kwatang is out of the country.
The Times, Tories plot Sunak and Mordaunt leadership.
And then the Guardian, Trust prepares a new mini-budget U-turn in latest blow to authority.
Well, for the press preview, let's bring in Dr. Sam Amadi. Good to have you on the show. Dr. Sam, news just coming in. The Academic Staff Union of Universities has called off its 8-month-old strike. And we know that they've had lots of discussions, and we're hoping this would be the last in a long time, would it?
Why not? It can be, except you deal with the underlying factors and some of the issues. Don't forget that if you look at about the year, not up to a few months after ASU was formed, the university workers went on strike. So what's driving it? I think this maybe gives authorities, government, university authorities, everybody kind of time out to take a deep breath and reconsider some of the policies. And maybe they say a crisis is a big thing to waste. Maybe this is a good thing to waste. This is the right time now to take a holistic review of the education, especially the tertiary education in Nigeria. If you look at statistics, the rate of completion of university education in Nigeria is actually less than African low development countries, even our neighbors. We have the list of enrollment university per capita and completion. So we need to do a lot more to get people into the universities, build more schools. But the question then is, what should be the financial framework for universities in Nigeria? Some people, they view that universities should be, as much as possible, commercialized. Some people have the view that it's supposed to be socialized, social service. So that government continues to bail out and continues to, subsidize it as we like. So that's the debate we're going to have, and then we'll go to accountability. We'll go to how do you manage internal self-governance, whether you need to have this level of collective bargaining to protect the well-being of workers, or you should leave it to individual universities and senates and governing laws to compete so that some universities can be paying as much as. But that would mean that the federal government to somehow lose control, ownership. And that is another issue around what happens over commercialization means lack of access. And we need more access to universities. So this will not be the end. This will be a relief for maybe, don't forget that the longest we had was in 2020 under the same government, and now we have second to the longest. So the prayer is that somehow we can have the courage, the clear thinking to solve these underlying problems. And if we do, then we might be seeing the end of protected strike actions. But look, if we don't, we might have a reprieve down the line somewhere. The agreements don't add up, or someone doesn't perform, or somehow government reneges, or somehow ASU comes back to the table, say, well, you've dealt with this, you've not dealt with the package around reform of education and proper financing. So it's still, once a morning on Creation Day on this issue.
Now let's talk on the issue of Nnamdi Kanu. It cuts across all of the headlines in the dailies this morning. The appeal court has quashed all the charges brought against him by the federal government. And do you see in any way here, probably if the federal government is actually going to appeal this judgment?
Well, indication from the Attorney General's office is that they probably will, or most likely appeal today. The key issue here, there are two of them. One, the most fundamental here in respect to the judgment is how the Attorney General office interprets that judgment. Some leads says, discharged and acquitted. But the Attorney General's statement says they were discharged but not acquitted. So the idea here is that, look, yes, they found the manner of his rendition to the country unlawful, illegal, violating the AU Charter and rules around extradition. But that there are pre-rendition charges pending that needs to be dealt with. So if they don't appeal, the logic would seem difficult to say that when the Court of Appeal says that the manner in which this accused person was brought into jurisdiction for the purpose of the court exercising jurisdiction over him was unlawful, violated international law at the level, the Supreme Court has said international laws that are domesticated and signed by Nigeria are really enforceable. So it'd be difficult to tell us how you're going to have him stand trial for other offenses that are dependent on lawful entry to the country. So it's going to be some kind of wicked logic to say so. But we'll wait and see. But it seems to me that the safest option will be to appeal the judgment, and while that goes on, hope that the Supreme Court will take a different view, which is looking most unlikely from the facts and the law in that judgment. But the noblest thing will be probably to obey the order quickly and get Nnamdi Kanu out of prison and home. And then if you now want to bring back a charge, and the government has a right, they can take over the passport, restrict movement, and then at that point they can look at, is there any really criminal trial here? But the problem is this: the government conflicts criminal and political trial. So if you want to deal with a political problem and you resort to criminal charge, oftentimes run into trouble with the clarity of the charges. They now begin to look ridiculous. So you make up your mind, look, if the action is criminal, then deal with criminality, leave other aspect of political. If it's politics, then don't go to court, use politics. So that conflation of crime and political misbehavior or political disquiet, you don't like the politics of these people, is the reason why these charges don't really look credible from a criminal trial perspective.
Dr. Sam, critics have been following this story, of course, way back in 2019, 5 months before the election, Nnamdi Kanu emerged, and now 2022, it's 5 months before the next election, and he's a free man again. Are there any concerns about his significance? Should we be expecting something from him with regards to voting in the Southeast?
Well, first thing is fundamentally you respect that Nnamdi Kanu's release will have political implications. So it goes multiple ways. First, if he's released today, you'll be sure that sit at home in his very ragtag manner. Nobody's half-heartedly, some places the people don't really care, but it will be officially off the shelf and people will resume their normal life on Monday. Two, you can expect that there are two ways possibly that Nnamdi Kanu comes in and the agitation comes down, then it channels itself into a much more civil manner that it had been before the radicalization, unfortunately. And secondly, or thirdly rather, you expect probably that we go back to deja vu, where the issue becomes no referendum, no election, or stuff like that. If that happens, one political party will bear the brunt because of low turnout and possible suppression of voters. I think the Labour leaders will be watching carefully, and maybe the APC, PDP will be waiting, seeing that one bad turns favors somebody else. So it's going to be complicated what's going to happen, but we know that it will have impact, significant political change. One will be obviously the senator will be off, business as usual. The second will be there will be some consideration whether this will help voter turnout in terms of some leads of concern, or whether it will reshape the agitation for Biafra in a manner that may lead to some low voter turnout. So that's interesting to watch what plays out there.
Now, the main opposition party, People's Democratic Party, is making its last move to see if it can actually ditch the internal crisis within the party as regards Wike. We have governors of the South, if I should call that a high delegation, Akwa Ibom, Delta, Edo, going to see Wike. And he's been insistent on the resignation of the party chairman, Dr. Yocha, quoting him saying, he said if the presidential candidate should emerge from the north, he was going to resign. And he's insisting on the fact that the party chairmanship should be given to the south. Let's contemplate that for a moment.
Well, from a semantic perspective, I think Wike has the moral high ground here. If someone says, look, I'm saying a guy says A, he should do A. It looks like, obviously is the one who has the moral high ground. But deeper, really, it's the fact that he understands this game, that look, the party is desperate to win, and he is the guy who has some significant control of the machinery that will help winning. And this election is an election where you don't want to lose one vote. A PDP will be scratching their head how they're going to make decent out to the southeast and the south, probably win those zones or contend seriously and push back the Labour Party move. So they are not going to wait for one vote loss to get missing from the box. So that's really what it's about. Now, some people are reviewed that, look, this is time to cut their losses and move on and present a mitigation plan and see where else you can cover up for the losses you're going to obviously have if we get something, a ticket that's going to bring you some loss. The problem is that the strategic thinking that you need to make this analysis is not there. The data, the sense of empiricism, the sense that, look, what are we losing in real terms? It's not being clear. And so the party models through all this. One would argue that maybe they should have started this earlier on. Other school of thought said, look, leave this Wike matter and face the campaign. There are voters out there who have not made up their mind. You're dealing with, this is not only about zone. This election will turn on numbers. And they're going to turn on how much you're messaging dislodges some of the entrenched ideas. For example, the youth population is high here. And so if somebody wins that vote or even push the P2B's campaign to finish in line, you might see that you might actually come clear. So I think it's going to be difficult for PDP, but anyhow, they should continue this conversation. Maybe there will be a trade-off. The difficulty here is like a zero sum. You got to get to, are you off or nothing at all? And that's the case. That the question is the party, the ticket, willing to throw its national chairman into the rivers, and move on with the cell? But let's watch how that plays out. I think it's a difficult proposition and may come to naught if there's no courage and a sense of some degree of recklessness. So you know what, we go for this and we don't give it down.
In the last 60 seconds, Dr. Sam, we saw some protests with the obedient movement. The Daily Sun says the obedient movement, like the NSAS, is driven by a desire for better Nigeria. Those are the words of the renowned Cardinal Kogi. But yesterday we saw a protest. The supporters online asked the party to withdraw one of the members of its presidential campaign council. One of that member was a military officer, General Enyeche, who had denied the existence of the massacre at Lekki in Lagos.
I think it's a tragic error for the party to have allowed that name to serve. Look, the obedient movement is based on a narrative. It's based on a narrative of discontinuity with the past. So it's winning because of optics, because of sentiment. Therefore, it has been disciplined to focus on sentiment, on narrative, on pathos. You just can't put a man who defended, for all his merits, he might not really support what happened, but his official role, he defended that NSAS, and the rump of this movement, the foundation is NSAS. So I think it was an error of judgment, totally erroneous behavior, and it shows maybe to some extent that maybe nobody is paying clear attention to do decent work. And it's good that they said they're going to withdraw him. I think they should do that and move on. But clearly, the NSAS supporters and champions, they are very correct to say this name is a stain on this seemingly very white canvas, and they got to get it out as quick as possible.
Dr. Sam Amadi, thank you for joining us and for your analysis on Press Preview. Let's share your view on all the burning issues. Follow us on Twitter at Arise TV, and you can also join today's conversation using the hashtag AriseDaybreak.